Hey there, it's Chloe, co-director of the La Chiara Method and your podcast co-host. We've created something really special for you. A free 8-day mini course designed to transform your life in 3 minutes a day or less. Each day, you'll receive an aha-provoking question and bite-sized meditation that helps to unearth unconscious beliefs and connect you to your divine essence. Tired of swirling in the chaos? Head to lachiaramethod.com/podcast-gift or find that link in the show notes. Here's to your healing and a clearer, happier you. Welcome to the Activate Change podcast, where transformation is just a conversation away. Each episode offers an intimate front row seat to an authentic and unscripted personal healing session with renowned healer and creator of the La Chiara Method, Gabrielli La Chiara. Our incredibly generous and courageous guests explore their genuine struggles, longings, and deepest desires in these sessions, and we, as listeners, have the honor and privilege to witness their sacred and profound healing journeys. As you listen, we invite you to receive as well, feeling into where the healing and insights that transpire might spark transformation in your own life. And stay tuned until the end because I, Chloe Faith Urban, will discuss the session and share a skill or framework that Gabrielli used, which you can apply to your own personal healing. This podcast does contain adult language and content, so if you have little ones around you, you may want to use headphones. In this episode, Gabrielli has a session with Brenna, who's struggling with her partner's relationship with alcohol and wonders if she can stay. She doesn't like the parts of herself that rear their monstrous heads in the relationship and wonders what it will take to honor herself in a challenging dynamic. This is part 1 of a 2-part episode with Brenna, who's had many sessions with Gabrielli over the years. Together, they've explored Brenna's relationship with other people's addictions, her family history, and her own codependent patterns. Throughout this journey of personal sessions and retreats with us, Brenna has done some profound work to uncover self-responsibility and self-accountability. She's learning to lead her own life in positive and empowering ways. Today's session is just a glimpse into the middle of this transformative healing process. And next week, you will hear the follow-up session they did after this session shook loose and brought to consciousness some challenging dynamics she's really ready to shift. Let's dive in.
Hi. Hi there. Welcome to our podcast. I'm so happy to be here with you. I'm going to take a breath with you and then we'll set our stage and see where you want support today. And I definitely encourage long exhales. Having said that, if you're feeling like you're recoiling from the work we're about to do, if your body feels like it's imploding inwardly, you might need some inhales to stimulate your willingness to show up. And either way, either side for you is whatever feels most generative. And so I'm going to take a couple breaths and get myself calmed into the space. Yeah. And as I do that, feeling, and I can instantly feel just how much emotion you're carrying, the sensations you're in. And I'm wanting to just meet that and hold this space as our container and our intention to take care of you so that I can show up, be present, feel, witness, support in any way possible your process of healing and activate change and generate healing immediately. Yeah. Wow, I can really, I know we've had our pulse on the work that we're about to do today and that we've been in conversation and sessions over the past months around this kind of moment and experience you're having. and I can feel something different. Like I'm in this moment, just sitting with you. I'm feeling like there's a ball almost in my belly that feels like it's churning backwards is how it feels. I feel like it's this, orb almost that's like, I don't know if it's trying to unwind or if it's trying to move away from. And so I'm curious, what you need, what's going on for you, and how you feel like I can support your intentions.
I really want to get out of my old, flip into reactivity and victim mentality that matches his victim mentality. And that constant fight. I want more peace around just what is so that I have clarity around what I need. And taking it and not getting stuck in the guilt of taking it, whatever his action ends up being.
So you're in...
And how he might personally.
So I'm hearing you're in a couple's dynamic. I'm knowing just from our past experience as somebody that you live with and that you're, sharing regular connection in this way. Somebody that you live with is pretty much all I need to say there. And that you're in a committed relationship, and that this, what I'm hearing you say is that you're having a particular reaction to this moment that you're trying to either understand or figure out what to do about or how to shift or change. Yeah.
Yeah. And not, I get really freaked out in his addictive identity.
Right. Okay. So let's dive in and see where this takes us. So you're looking at a partner who has addiction. You're finding your role in relationship. What's the difference between codependency, what's healthy, what's self-love, what's showing up, what's your responsibility, what's not. And let's see where this takes us, in terms of where you're at today. So let's just clear all the energy around that so that we can peer in and feel, what is your body, being, soul, spirit asking from this time? What do you know and need to know in order to show up in health and vitality in yourself as you manage and navigate and dance inside the intimacy of relationship with your beloved who has addiction actively, and activate change and generate healing immediately. I'm going to dive into discovery. The question I'm hearing is that okay? Yeah. The question I'm hearing is, who gets to decide who you are?
My mom.
Okay. Thank you for that. Aware-ing, present already to an earlier dynamic in your life. So let's hold that together. Your mom gets to decide who you are. And all the times that's been true. Anyway, it's still true. Activate change and generate healing immediately. Let's try saying, my mom gets to decide who I am 3 times.
Okay. And in that moment, it shifted more into family.
Great. Well, let's stay with it then and not go there. So let's have you feel.
Okay.
And activate change and generate healing immediately. So your family gets to decide who you are. Is that true?
No. And it feels like there is a part of me that still plays that dynamic or believes that dynamic.
So if it's true, if some part of it is true, then who do you think your family wants you to be in relationship to your partner and their addiction? Who would they want you to be? What is running? Right. So if your mom or your family gets to say who you are in this moment. And they're telling you who to be in relationship to this relationship, in this moment, and intimacy and addiction. Who are they telling you to be?
The enabler.
And activate change and generate healing immediately. So truth, what's an enabler in your family?
Someone who stays silent.
Right. So all the ways in which your family, the energy of your family, the DNA in your family, the memories of your family's choices around addiction would drive you in this moment to unconsciously go silent. Let's hold that. What is silence related to addiction in this moment, and activate change and generate healing immediately? So what is silence with an addict? What's enabling as silence? Like, what behavior does that even make you do? If you're doing that, what happens?
Yeah. I get pissed.
Right. Yeah.
I get fucking angry.
Angry at anything in particular?
I get angry at the unconscious choices, or just the choices and the delusions and the behaviors that come with being drunk,
right,
that are really hard to be around. And they're getting harder and harder to be around.
Right.
And then I'm like, well, what's going to happen? Like future. No way,
go into
future.
The fatal fear of the future. Yeah, that would make sense. And it makes sense that you're angry at addiction, essentially. It's like you're angry at the disease that is, part of and or encouraging and or that your partner is, whether they're choosing it on purpose or not, but it's happening in your world and in your life and in your home, right? So the anger, it's interesting because you're talking about right now being a moment of, and I don't know if you said this at the beginning of this call or we talked about it before we jumped on, but you talked about the wanting space and wanting to go so far, recoil so far away from what's happening. And I wonder if that's in alignment with thinking, look, with silence. It's like, if I just run away far enough and get away from you and you go take your space and you are someplace else for the week and I don't have to deal with you for maybe a month even, maybe that's a way of being able to align with the family's silence. And they're like, does that make sense where I'm going? Yeah. Right. So there's urgent tendency to stop being angry by being silent, or use the anger to force silence somehow away from the, so they either,
and to avoid a fight.
Right. Great point. Right. Because fighting with someone who's drunk is really hard. Maybe.
Yeah. And then I just feel like shit the next day. He doesn't even remember.
Right.
Unless I bring it back up.
Right. I'm really sorry. That's such a hard dynamic to be in. Like you're totally in fight flight for a real reason. I'm sure you're feeling really unsafe, trying to figure out how to have connection with somebody who is drunk. It's not present. Yeah. And was it normal in your family for people to just have intimacy with alcoholics or addicts?
I mean, my whole family, they're all alcoholics. My dad does not drink anymore, but he was a high functioning, and my mom is a functioning alcoholic. She would never admit that, but she's not going to give up the wine.
Right. So all of the indoctrinations and grids related to alcoholism that are blocking you from being able to find your own fucking knowing on what you're going to do next, like how you're going to show up, what interventions you will or won't have, what feels safe to you. Like, is it okay to have maybe some people do function with alcohol in their worlds, and maybe we'd even call them alcoholics, but who cares? Like, nobody's unsafe. Or even if they are, it's not our business. And what for you becomes like, to me, I'm hearing like, where's Brenna? Where are you? Like, where's your voice to say, this is what I want to choose in my life. This is the relationship I want to have with this person or not. And here's what feels safe and healthy to me related to how much use is happening in my environment. And I think that's the piece we want to really stir awake, right? Like, where are you in this? Yeah. So any and all ways in which your voice has been like usurped, and any ways in which the disease itself or the alcoholism or the use of alcohol or whatever the fuck we want to call it, the behaviors of your partner are blocking you from actually knowing yourself, knowing what you want, and knowing how to live the life that you want to be living in your own definition of health and relationship to whatever substances are there, And so can we clear the grids and constructs, both of family and of culture, that are blocking you from finding your own aware knowing? Yeah. And I know you've had moments of it on this ride that are super clear. Like, just know that we've been in this conversation and we've had sessions and moments where you're like, you're really in your potency and I feel you. And then it feels like you're in another moment where it's gotten washed over, it's gotten overwhelmed. You've gotten overwhelmed. Yeah. So all of the dance that you're in and all of the grids, structures, constructs, systems, beliefs, specifically all of the family dynamics and the normalization of alcohol and any of that's good, bad, or otherwise, what we're trying to do is take it off all the grids so that you have your own personal choices to make, just like your parents make, just like other people make. Like, you get to say, this is me and the life I want to choose. And here's how I want to show up for my beloved who chooses that or not, right? And activate change and generate healing immediately. Because there's not a black and white choice here. It's not like, okay, now today we're going to figure it out and say, that's it, run away. Or I mean, maybe you will, but we're not. I'm not going to tell you there's some line that we're going to impose on you and say, do it this way. Or, great, take your space, be quiet, and then, just wait till the next round or whatever. So all the tendencies to want an answer, to want to fix it, to want an answer, to want to figure out what to do, to want, like that.
Yeah, I want all those things because I'm super uncomfortable.
Yeah, and it's appropriate that you're uncomfortable. Your body is definitely trying to find her knowing. And something isn't working for you, right? Something is hitting lines of safety that you haven't yet or are still trying to figure out how to intervene with, right? And what does that even mean for you now versus long run? This is, so yes, I just want to acknowledge that you are feeling unsafe and probably are unsafe in ways for you that don't really work. And I want to just applaud and acknowledge that you're trying not to just run really fast from that and then have those regrets, as well as not trying to just go numb and ignore it. And I think anytime we're coming from unconscious to conscious, like there's that wave of how we grow, and we start in the consciousness wave of unconsciously unconscious. And then we try to wake it up a little and we're like, oh, then we become conscious of what's unconscious. And in that step in the wave, that part of the wave, that's the hardest, because we're like, I'm so consciously aware of how unconscious I am. And then I become conscious, and I'm consciously conscious with effort. It takes a lot of work. It's a muscle to grow. And then we slip back into unconscious and back in, and until we become unconsciously conscious in a way that we want to be. And I see you on that wave, really like sitting in that place where you're really trying to stay consciously conscious. And the tendency is to go unconscious. Yeah. At least that's how I would define it. I don't know how that resonates.
Yeah, there was a lot of conscious and unconscious.
Yeah.
I tried to keep up, but I think
yes. Just to simplify, unconsciously unconscious. We just don't know what we're doing, and we're doing it. And then we wake up, or we have a healing crisis, or we have an inspiring moment, and we're like, oh, I'm so conscious. And then we look at ourselves and we're like, wow, look at how unconscious I am. So then we're conscious of how freaking unconscious we are. And we're like, fuck, I'm so unconscious. And that's all. And now the next step is all effort. Like I then have to do a lot of practice to get myself consciously conscious so that I make the choices I want to make. And every bit of our habits and tendencies slip us back into unconsciousness. And this is what I see you're working on in your growth step, which is really trying to stay present to what conscious decisions mean for you. And feeling all the pulls and tendencies to want to go unconscious and just either run away or fight or not fight or whatever it is, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Does that make more sense? Yeah, good.
Yep.
Good.
Crystal clear now.
So knowing that that's the muscle you're growing, let's just take a minute and acknowledge yourself that is the hardest thing we do. That's the hardest thing we do, to become conscious of our unconsciousness and to be able to not just live in a shame attack or regrets or self-hatred. I don't know that there's anything harder, because we have made decisions we don't wish we didn't make, right? We're in it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And there are all the tendencies that might be in here, and you'll know inside yourself to flip into self-hatred or shame, or to throw yourself under the bus, or if not you, to want to throw him under the bus for being unconscious. You know, like all the...
I kind of do also like the other spectrum of shame, like that grandiosity, like high horse.
Yeah.
Like, just listen to me. I know better than you.
I know that one. It's so much easier for a minute. Until it's really not easier.
Until you're met with like the full-blown resistance.
Oh, you're like, well, that was really effective, huh? Yeah. That is how we grow. And I applaud you, because you're growing, and that's what healing looks like. It's messy. You know, this part of healing, especially around only addiction recovery work, it's hard. It is so hard. I mean, something like alcoholism, if that's even what it is, but the overuse or abuse of some kind of substance is always about going unconscious, you know, and the drive to go unconscious and to be seduced by that, because there might be comfort in that, right? Yeah. And sometimes to hide our shame because of that. So any shame or any unconsciousness or any self-hatred or any righteousness that is it possible that any of that's not yours, and that you're also processing some of that for your beloved or your family? Yeah. And are you willing to clear the parts that are not yours so that you can, and I guess, are you willing to own the parts that are? Yeah. Good.
Yes, absolutely.
So, I got so many shivers. Let's command your body and being to release all of the shame, self-hatred, martyrdom, or righteousness, and all the cycles of that kind of shame and unconsciousness that would trap you and actually push you more into addictive habits, more into codependent enabling habits, and anything here that isn't yours, that is part of someone else's process, whether it's your family, whether it's your partner, whoever it is. Let's command your body and being to release the parts that are not yours, so that we can shed those layers and peer in with our like really hawk eagle eye vision and say, what's mine here? What is my work? Am I willing to do it? And I heard a strong yes. So commanding your body and being to release everything that's not yours. And let's gift that to the vibrational source of consciousness. We're not throwing it in anyone's face. We're saying, give it over, surrender it, so that we can see, feel, know exactly who to be now, and activate change and generate healing immediately. Ooh. Giving that a good push. Let's command your body and being to really release the parts that are not yours, that belong to your mother or your family or anyone else, or past relationships, or your partner or his relationships, or his children's, or whoever else might be in the field here. We thank you all of that. We thank it all. Wonderful. We appreciate it. Intimacy includes learning all that shit about each other. And you get to be potent enough to say, no, I'm not going to live from all those energies if they're not even mine. I am going to find myself and activate change to generate healing immediately. How's that feel?
I feel not recoiled anymore.
Yeah, right off the back of that neck there. Let's let that primal brain release that. So clearing any primal brain energies that would keep you thinking that staying in that muck of shame and self-hatred and enabling and righteousness, that actually staying in there that's how you're going to find the answer. So is there any possibility that you're duping yourself to thinking, if I dive into that pain, that's where I'll find my knowing?
Yeah.
And is it possible that releasing that shit is how you're actually going to find your knowing? Good. And are you willing to know who you are now for you, not for anyone else? And of course, we're influenced by others. We want to take into consideration who they are. We want to learn from them. We want to love and be loved and be in it. And that doesn't mean that we have to lose our whole knowing to becoming something somebody else would do or be or make us do or be. And so clearing all of that. Activate change and generate healing immediately. So if your body, being, soul, spirit, we're all in total communion with this earth you in this moment, facing everything that's going on in your life, who would you be? Who would you decide you are? Good.
I don't know.
That's the best place in the world because you've never done this moment before. So are you willing not to know? Like, can we embrace not knowing? Maybe you don't know. And maybe there isn't an answer yet about who you are in this moment. And it's more about asking that question over and over and over. Who am I now? Who am I choosing to be? Who am I now? Until who I am now shows me what behaviors I need to choose. And are you willing to choose the awkwardness of not knowing? And that's a different way of choosing to be consciously unconscious, right? It's a beautiful way of saying, oh, I can also embrace that to say, it's unconscious. I don't know it yet. It hasn't come to the surface. And it's yours to know. It's not anyone else's to tell you. Sure, you can read books or get advice and maybe something will resonate. That helps. And it's still going to be yours to know. No one else's, right? So are you willing to embrace all the things you don't know about being you? And continue on the path that I know you've been on, which is today feels restorative, coming back to yourself, coming back to the fact that it's okay not to have an awareness yet of how to do this. And you might not know yet. And you do get to take the time and space and not just recoil or fight, but find some middle ground of, curiosity. Who am I? How do I hold the pain? How do I hold the confusion? How do I find resilience so that I can keep asking, who am I today? In this relationship. And activate change and generate healing immediately. Wow. Let's see what else you need with that. How is that settling in? Yeah.
It's good.
Feeling like we could just close up with an invocation on that and you'll process it more and we can return to it if you want. Does that feel generative if I just kind of invoke that thing? Okay. So I really just want to invoke that in the divine essence of who you are. You do know how to be you. You are the best one to know that. And your body, being, soul, spirit, it's all here. You have your connection. You know it. You've had that wisdom a million times over for different moments in your life, and that we can invoke. Your wisdom to know how to be you in the face of exactly what you're facing is in here somewhere. And that it's okay if it doesn't emerge immediately. It's okay if it takes days, months, weeks, but the journey is to be in the question, not to find an answer, and activate change and generate healing immediately. Activating the divinity for your curiosity to break those patterns inside yourself and to be okay in not knowing. And so that you can learn something spectacular and different and unusual and amazing about who you are and what you need now and any time in the future, and activate change and generate healing immediately. And that not knowing doesn't have to be dangerous. It's okay not to know. It's okay to know that you don't know. Yeah. Anything else you need before we close up here?
I mean, the like in that last bit, the just the thought of like, man, I like so wish he would do this work.
Right.
Like, just get a session. Go there. Like, just do something.
I mean, you can offer it again. I think when your brain and mind and heart are supple and you're not in the reactive patterns, there's no reason not to offer and wish for that. And then you let it go. You can't make him, right? But I love that there's part of you that knows the part of him that might resonate and might really receive something special if he did that kind of work, and he will or won't choose it, right? But there's not wrong to offer. Resourcing people is lovely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the letting go. Like I can resource, my clients and my friends and my siblings, but then it's hard to let go.
Brenna, you want this to work. You want a healthy relationship with this person and you love him.
Yeah.
There's no reason why it would be easy to constantly let go and to not know if what they're choosing is going to implode your whole relationship. If you're going to be able to stay with this person, of course, your attachment is healthy and strong. And I would be surprised if you didn't want that, or if it was easy to let go every time. I mean, it sounds like such a great philosophy. It's not easy. You're attached and you should be. And there's a lot of amazing things about the relationship too. So I think this is that dance, right? It's like to know and to come back to yourself and to know, I wish that for you, and I can wish that, and I can offer it. And yes, it's going to be hard to detangle and let it go, but you will to the best of your ability. And then you'll rise again and we'll see what he chooses, Yeah. Thank you for naming that. I think it's important to just feel the wave of that happens. I'm sure there's so many times you're like, oh, I just wish you would do this, because it seems like that would just be the answer, right? And and then I would have the part of you I want, or then you'd be safe or whatever it is that comes up. Yeah. Let's gift. I want to just gift him, and this is not putting it at him, but just to imagine that there's a gifting portal. I just feel like sunshine and oceans and bike rides, and just to say you have this love and that you have resources, and if he wants them, he can choose them, and that your hope and wish is to make this relationship healthy and successful and activate change and generate healing immediately. And that doesn't have to be delusional. That can just be true. You can want that, and you can still take all the steps for safety that you need to. Activate change and generate healing immediately. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you.
Thank you, dearest Brenna, for your courage and your strength and willingness to share yourself with us during such a challenging time in your life. I really know how intense it can be with addiction in families and in partnerships, and I was just so moved and honored to hear your authentic wrestlings with it all. This session really is just the beginning of the beautiful journey Brenna goes on with Gabrielli around addiction, but in and of itself, it was really powerful, and I wanted to speak about the framework Gabrielli brought in that we call the consciousness wave. The consciousness wave basically lays out 4 phases of growth that we all can go through. First, we have the unconsciously unconscious. This is the phase of the growth wave that we really we're in the we don't know that we don't know. We're just sort of trucking along in life, and we're unaware of what might be underneath, what might be going on in our unconscious that might be impacting us. It could be a belief, a story, a judgment, a fear. The list goes on. And we just have no idea. Some people can go their whole lives this way around a lot of things. And some of us, if you're anything like me, you might fall more into this category, love to grow, to learn about yourself, to heal, to uncover what might be lurking that is blocking you from being all of who you are and want to be in the world. And from this place, you find yourself in a healing or therapy session. You might read a book or listen to a podcast. You might be meditating or on your yoga mat. And all of a sudden, something appears into your consciousness. Like, wait, hold on a second. I didn't even realize that I had this habit or this belief, but now it's all I can see. How did I miss it for that long? Have you ever had that experience? I know I have. So you do your work. You practice, you take steps or even micro steps, and then you come to the phase in the wave where you become consciously unconscious. So you can see the habit, the pattern, the belief, the fear, but it's still operating without you having much say in the matter. You're aware it's there, but aren't exactly sure what to do about it or how to really transform it yet. This is really the hardest phase, at least in my experience, because you might be watching yourself doing something that you're really not proud of or you're really wanting to change, but it's almost like a knee-jerk reaction and it just keeps like happening and happening and you can't quite seem to kick it. And I find this to be really frustrating because I just, all of a sudden something slips out of my mouth or I eat the candy bar that I, committed not to eat, or I'm in a mode that I don't love so much. And here I am once again doing it and it's just happening and I can't even stop myself from doing it. So this is really where it comes to the point where you can see it enough times, or your coach or therapist or friend or partner helps give you a nudge in the direction of like, okay, this is something I really do want to change. I want to do the work. I want to shift this pattern. I want to heal what's in here to heal. I want to see what trauma or oppression might be under there. It could be inherited or otherwise. And you begin to really shift it. So you move into the consciously conscious phase of this journey. And this phase takes work. It takes commitment. It takes healing, shifting, growing, and resetting enough times where things begin to really change. You're still working at it, but things are really shifting. And you begin to see the possibility of that habit or pattern or fear not operating in your life the same way that it used to. So you're working at it, but you're starting to see changes. And then we come to that point in the wave where it begins to move into the phase where you're becoming unconsciously conscious, where you've found your stride and you're no longer having to work hard for it. And that habit or way of being or that fear or whatever it is that you were wanting to shift has shifted so much that you have a completely different relationship with it. You might even get to the point where you look back years later and you're like, wait a minute, I don't ever do that anymore. Or that fear really isn't running my life. Or that way I talk to my sister, I just don't do that anymore. It could be so many different things. So those really are the 4 phases of the consciousness wave. And I'm feeling like it might be helpful for me to just give a personal example. I had this pretty deeply ingrained way of being with the closest people in my life for as long as I really can remember, which basically, especially in times of stress or times when I was afraid or feeling really vulnerable, I would get really bitchy and edgy with people. And if I'm honest, I still got to work on this one with my mom. Love you, mama. It might show up as like a snide comment or me being super harsh or abrupt with my tone or being quick to judge or criticize. And overall, just in reality, just not being very nice. I remember the day so clearly when my partner, Bay, finally was so sick of it. He's just like, this just isn't okay. You can't treat me like this. So whatever you got to do, you've got to stop. And that moment really shook me and I really took it to heart. And I certainly didn't want to be hurting my amazing, kind, caring partner like that. And as I looked and as I reflected, I realized that for many years, I just thought that that's who I was. That, yeah, I can be that way, but that's just part of my personality. And I really I couldn't imagine that it could really actually change, even with all the healing and growth and therapy I had done. I think when I met Bay, I was at that phase of the consciousness wave of being consciously unconscious. I had done enough healing, reflecting, therapy, all the things that I was aware that that was a pattern I had in stressful moments, but I really wasn't sure if I could ever change it. It still felt pretty locked in and kind of a part of who I was. Like that was a part of my identity. But with his call in, and as I really began to look to get help and to begin to find ways to interrupt this pattern and do something different, I really realized that like, oh my goodness, maybe this is changeable. And I really was seeing that that way of being was so out of integrity with who I wanted to be in the world and how I wanted to treat people, especially the ones I love the most. I was being unkind and disrespectful, and even saying those words out loud now gives me a deeply kind of visceral feeling of how truly out of alignment they were with my values. So I put in the work. I used the tools I knew. I asked for help. I sessioned myself. I got sessions with others. And I made a commitment to myself and to Bae that I was going to change it. It wasn't always easy. There were some really uncomfortable awarenesses and also a lot of juicy ahas. I saw inherited habits. I saw trauma patterns. I saw lots of things about myself. And I worked with it all until I got to the point where I had truly gotten that bitch of a person out of our relationship probably 90% of the time. We can go months without her rearing her head that much, and it's pretty astounding and has seriously changed our relationship. So now with that particular pattern, I would say I can still move along the consciousness wave, mostly between consciously conscious, where I'm still having to work with it very deliberately and using my tools and practices to keep myself accountable. And then I'll go to the unconsciously conscious, where I really do feel like I can get in a real stride and I'm not having to even work at it. And yeah, sometimes in my worst moments when I'm feeling super unsafe or I'm really sick or I'm stressed, every once in a while I dip into the consciously unconscious and that bitch lady rears her head. And I watch it happen and I'm like, okay, there I go again. But usually that reset can happen within minutes, sometimes seconds even, where something comes out of my mouth. I watch it, I catch it, I take a moment, I eat a piece of humble pie, I reset myself, and I apologize if it's needed. It's really been quite the journey and yet so incredibly rewarding. It has made such a difference in our dynamic in the relationship, but also I'm seeing that I'm capable of being who I really want to be in a partnership. Someone who's really aligned with the values I hold near and dear to my heart. And as I'm saying all of this, I can feel the stir in me to be like, okay, girl, you can say this to an extent, certainly in your partnership, this is hugely changed and in your relationships with others. And I can really feel in me the stirring to be done once and for all with this with my mom. And I really want to be treating her as best I possibly can. And I really do not need this bitch lady to be anywhere in my life. So for me, as I'm saying this, thank you all for listening, because it's helping me really get clear that that's my next commitment to myself, is to really take on what it's going to take for me to really work with that dynamic in the relationship, the amazing relationship I have with my mom. So with that, and as I make that commitment, I'm also wondering, you as the listener, I'm curious what's arising for you. Is there any habit or pattern or fear that maybe in that phase for you of consciously unconscious, you might see and know that it's there? It might feel really oh my God, could I actually take that on? Could I not? But that you're really ready to shift. So I really invite you to just take a moment, jot that down or take a mental note for yourself and begin to think of what steps you could take, what tools you could pull from your toolbox, what people you might call on to help you work with it, and begin the journey towards transforming that dynamic in your life. And if you're newer to this healing stuff, you might want to start with something super small so that you can really begin to see and feel your progress quickly. Sometimes feeling that momentum can really be super helpful, and we want you to know that change is possible and to really feel that. And for those of you that do this sort of thing all the time, where healing and self-introspection and growth is just part of the game for you, I'd invite you to think about something you've decided might never be changeable. That's just part of who you are. And I might challenge that and say, is that actually true? And what if healing around that particular issue might not be what you think it is? And are you willing to be surprised? So have fun adventuring on this consciousness wave. And also don't forget, this is a 2-part episode. So be sure to tune in next week when Brenna goes even deeper into her work around addiction, love, and this big choice she's teetering on the edge of. And until then, so much love. Thanks so much for being with us. Saying a huge thank you to Ali Halpert, who's the amazing musician who wrote the songs that you hear in this podcast. We have had the privilege to be able to sing some of Ali's songs in our retreats and workshops, and they've been really powerful additions to our work with people. You can hear more of Ali's music and check out more about Ali on Ali's website, AliHalpert.com. That's AlyHalpert.com.